Kia ora, New Zealand. Welcome to Sweet Chain Live. My name's Matt Drake. This is episode 111. Feels like that we are rattling through these at a rate of knots. But as ever, we've got a great show for you tonight. First up, good evening, Brady Cush. How are you?
Good, Matt. How are you?
Yeah.
You surviving this daylight savings, right? We had that last weekend. I feel like I lost an hour somewhere.
We all lost an hour of evening golf time. I am, night or two of gaining an hour's sleep, and unfortunately, we've lost an hour's golf time. I hoped to get out after work, and then got to about 6:30, and it was pitch black. I was like, "Oh, this is no good." So, yeah.
Well, you just have to come join us for those dad rounds and bring 4200. You know it's black, right?
Yep, that's right. I heard it was, and this Sunday I'm definitely hoping to get out in the afternoon.
Nice.
It's the monthly Wellington Masters round. So the Ziminis.
Ziminis, that's right.
The Ziminis are up for grabs. This I don't know if I've got it actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, what number are you at these days in the Z Mini Challenge? So for those of you who don't know, who are joining the show and live outside the capital, there's a group of Masters players who all have like little minis made up every year. And so they kind of battle them out over the city. Matt is currently sitting on number 4.
Number 4.
4 out of
that's
how
right.
many? 4 out of 4?
4, very good. No, four out of 8.
Okay.
There's 8 of us this year, and so yes, they all go in as a scramble on early in the month. I think is meant to be the thing. I think it was meant to be last Sunday, but a number of people couldn't make it. So up for grabs this Sunday. I'm hoping to reduce my Zimini number from 4 down to something a little bit better. However, I'll have Brett Carlisle, Simon Fogarty, and Jung Ha, who will be hoping to put the brakes on there, but we shall see. Yes, definitely. Berrenport 200. It's a sanctioned league. Is that back?
Yep, yeah, it is sanctioned. I need to post scores and like that kind of stuff. I've been busy trying to track down parks for Middle Earth and sorting out online registration, trying to use Disc Golf Scene.
Yep.
I've used PayPal in the past, but it's tripping me up being like, oh, you're not verified. And I'm like,
Oh.
I totally am. I've done this before. I did this last year.
Well, I look forward to. So are you going to backdate the rounds? Because the first round was last week, right?
Yep, first round's last week, so that will go up. Probably just after the show.
Yeah.
I'll put all of those in and kind of track a couple people down.
Of course, with autumn comes rubbish weather, and I've actually heard it's going to be quite. The weather's gonna turn on Sunday, so that should be interesting. Something that everybody's been having to cope with, obviously, is the change in the seasons, and it's something which will have affected all of our hot scores, which is where we're going to go to first. Then we're going to do a quick review of the Bottle Lake Open, which was played last weekend down in Christchurch. A couple of talking points with regards to that tournament that are noteworthy. And then we're going to get into the first of a new segment called Sweet Chain Discourse. Now, this is a very interactive part of the show, and basically we'll be discussing a topic about disc golf. One of us will take one side, one of us will take the other. Now, the intention isn't to put across our opinion necessarily, but to provide a reasoned argument on both sides. Now, it may well be that there will be occasions where the side that we're arguing agrees with our opinion, and there'll be times when it doesn't. So yeah, look out for that today. With the first one, which is inspired a little bit by a conversation that was had on the Nick and Matt show. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, so we'll talk about it a little later on. So Steve Dodge was on the Nick and Matt show on Monday night this week. So for those of you who don't know, Steve Dodge is the founder of the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the tournament director for the MVP Open at Maple Hill. Nick and Matt are 2 Massachusetts-based players, and so they host a podcast every night. And so, yeah, they brought up a great topic, but we'll get to that later on in the show. So stay tuned.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. But we're keen to have your thoughts. So get ready in the comments, because we want to know what you think when we get to that part. We've also got updates to the power rankings. A big update today to the power rankings. There's been a lot of shifting in the top 20, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, so that about wraps it up. But we're going to get first into hot scores. Brady, take us through the South.
In the South, as ever, starting in Invercargill and Queen's Park, the lefty Ethan Stout is up the top again with a 12 under par this week. At Chingford and Dunedin, Oscar Shepard Morrison shoots a 3 under par for the hot round. And in Brockville, Jack Maffey sits up the top with 7 under par. In the Wakatipu Basin, Queenstown Gardens, Rob shoots a 10 under for the hot round this week. And at Tucker Beach, Brandon Ralph shoots a -5. As we jump over the Crown Range, Ely Point, Brandon Ralph again shoots a -3. And at Lismore Park, it's Mundo McDisk, who shoots 10 under par. Up at Jelly Park, we'll go to Ben Kroll, shooting a 10 under at Jelly. Good shooting, Ben. And Logan takes out the hot round with a -2 at Ascot. Staying in the Garden City, Queen's Park Reserve, Paul Wadsworth shoots a -6. And Brooker Ave, Donald Booth shoots a 1 over par. And up Taylor River Reserve, can't forget the top of the South, Matthew Frank shoots a 1 over par to round out the South Island.
Up in the north, it's Elliot who hits a 6 under par at Berrenpool in the capital. Across the water at Hikoikoi, Brady Cush hits 5 under par. Very well done, Brady. Take out the hot score in Petone. Up at Harcourt Park, Daniel Smith hits +3. Harcourt Park will play host to the Middle-earth Open early next month. And Linklater Reserve, Ephraim Russell hits 8 under par. In the mighty Mano 2. Over to Maryland's in New Plymouth, and it's Jason Packer who hits 1 under par, and 1 under par was also enough for Callum Petman at Spa Park Red to take out the hot score this week. Slicinator takes McLaren's to task with a 4 under par this week, and Owen Mandizodza hits 6 under par at Henderson. Very well done to all of our hot scores. Now, there was also a sanctioned round. We're not going to go there yet. Where is it? There it is. At the Bottle Lake Open this last weekend. So we're just going to have a quick look at the results of the Bottle Lake Open. So at the top of the MPO division, Jay Watkinson takes out the title with by 7 shots with a 12 under par over Sebastian Faulkner and Andrew Popham in third. The hot round was Jay Watkinson's final round of 10.27. However, it is noteworthy Ashton Clark's 10.25 opening round, which I think gave him a 5-shot lead going into the second round, and then had a more forgettable second round that pushed him down the order. Maxime Tonge came in tied fourth place with Ashton. They're on their way back now. I would have thought back to Belgium. I think Maxime is participating in the Belgian tour in early May, so you'll be able to see the results of that. Other noteworthy performances: Joseph Berry in 6th, Callus Thompson in 7th, and Judah Watkinson in 8th. Over to we'll talk about the ladies' divisions in a minute, Brady, if I may, because there's something I want to bring up here.
I thought you might chat about that.
You can probably guess, but we'll get to it in a minute. MA1 Ben Schicker takes it out by 11 shots fairly comfortably, and shoots 10 shots better than Gary O'Brien in the final round there. So well done to Ben. In MA40, Jamie Helms takes out the title with a +34, 1 shot better than Peter Tayepa. In MA50, Gregor Brosnahan, Christchurch local legend, with a 7-shot lead over Andrew Faulkner. In an MA2, it's Lee Morris who takes out the title by 6 shots over Kevin Carpenter. Now, in the junior division, Sam Lycan shoots +15, 1 shot better than Eli LaRue. Just going to take a quick look at this a minute. it's always worth keeping an eye on the juniors. Sam Lycombe would have finished second in MA1. That's pretty cool, and would have finished 13th in MPO had he played in those divisions. But anyway, something I'd like to talk about, Brady, is the ladies' divisions.
Okay, do it. What's the problem with the ladies' divisions there, Matt?
There were 5 ladies who entered the tournament. 3 of them completed it, and they were spread across 4 divisions. And I wonder, and this might not be a very popular opinion. People might come to this, but I wonder what the benefit of doing that is. Now, I get it, right? People can enter whatever divisions they like, but surely there has to be some... What's the right phrase? Not common sense, but like, surely the tournament director can kind of, when they see that the size of the field is going to be the size that it has been here, they can funnel people into fewer divisions so that there's more competition, right?
Interesting that you ended all of that story with that of competition.
So people, I get the age protected division. People may not want to play against people who are of a different age group. But like and Echo's rating isn't high enough to preclude her from playing FA1.
Correct.
So, and Eilish obviously didn't finish the tournament, but had every intention of finishing the tournament, it would seem, because she scored a first round. So,
this is a great place to kind of like start the discourse, right? So, here's you believe that divisions need more than one player, yes?
I think that to give them credibility, yes. Yeah, I do.
Define credibility.
Well, otherwise you end up with a situation where people have as their record, like, I don't know, heaps of tournaments played, and then a couple fewer tournament wins. And then you have a look, and they're all tournaments where there's been one person in the division.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's none of my business, really, right? Because I'm not in any of these divisions. I'm never going to qualify for any of these divisions. So, like, I guess it's none of my business. But I just kind of think, are people missing out on having having a battle, or do people not want a battle and actually playing in your own division where you can go and have a weekend away in Christchurch and play some disc golf and not have the pressure of competition? Is that what people want? And if that's the case, I would argue, why are you entering a competitive tournament to do that? Just come and play with your mates. I don't. Am I being a dick? I don't. What's going on here?
Okay, so how about I play devil's advocate and voice the other side, right?
Yeah, go on.
So the idea of I want players to come out and have fun. There's nothing more fun than winning, right? So if all you had to do is show up, then what's better than a participation ribbon than a winner's trophy, right?
Right. Now, carry on your point, but I want to bring up participation medals or whatever, because I've got some views on this. But go on, carry on.
Yeah. So like the idea of, I've already broadcast it, like if I'm a TD and that kind of stuff, I've already had sponsors come in saying that I have this many divisions. They've given me this many prizes, and say I've gone to, what? I love Casey Brown. I'm supporting her. I have winner's discs for all the divisions. So like, I've already have the disc made and they've already registered for it. So like, what's the problem with having them like play and win a disc and like winning a division?
Okay.
Did I just kick the hornet's nest?
No. So look. So participation medals, there's quite a lot of evidence to show that participation medals, particularly in for kids, is a really bad idea, right?
Okay.
Ultimately, because the kids know that it's a participation medal and they haven't actually got it for winning; they've just got it for turning up. It also takes, I think, some of the shine off the time when they actually win their first tournament, real tournament with people, and it's competitive, and they've had to fight and do something different and maybe take a risk, and it takes away, I think, some of the shine of that if their first win isn't their first win, it's their, whatever win, and the ones that preceded it were all ones where there's been one division. I'd be really keen to hear from some other people on here, particularly some ladies who, let's be honest, this affects the ladies and to a degree juniors, but not so much anymore. It really affects the ladies divisions predominantly. Am I being a dick here? Like, what's the viewpoint? Because it seems like all five of these ladies could have been funneled into one FA1 division.
Yep.
And they still would have presumably participated and kind of, and I use the word compete, but I'm struggling for why.
Okay, so here's a great example, right? So let's turn the table. So like right now you're being a little genderist. So the idea of, the idea.
Explain to me how.
So you're targeting women, right? Like what if this was the mixed open divisions, right?
Then I'd say no, that's not fair. That's not fair, because I'd say exactly the same thing. If there was one person in MA3 that turned up and they said, I want to play MA3, and Jay went, well, all right, we don't really have a division for that. Sorry, I shouldn't have said Jay. I should have said a tournament director said, okay, let's, and they played MA3, I'd have exactly the same problem, right? I've got its issues. I know that there's issues with the divisions that people play in, and I've expressed those views before when we see people who decide to play in divisions which they then go and walk away with easily. So I know I don't think I'm singling out women here. I think I'm singling out divisions. It happens that.
Yeah. Well, like
it's a
I'm just.
I mean. And
I'd
say exactly the same if someone came in and said MA60. I'd say, look, there's 10 people in MA50 and there's one of you in MA60. Go and play an MA50. And I'd expect.
Well, what if, Matt, you're the only one who's in MA40 and I'm like, sorry, you have to play MA1.
Fine.
Fine?
No issue. No issue at
all. Okay.
No issue at all. I mean, what? I'd have absolutely no problem with that at all. Absolutely no problem.
Here's the other thing too. So I know that Jay's going overseas. I personally am going overseas this year, and so like there are a few people around the country, especially Masters players such as yourself, who may be aware that there are now points that you get awarded in each division. Mm-hmm. So the idea of, if you did look, Echo did take money, so she probably made around, it looks like $75. For finishing in the open division. Yep. So she wouldn't have been able to take that if she was in FA1. She will receive pro points, which means if she has the desire to play in Pro Worlds, she's now accruing points to go to that. Just like the other players, the idea of the FA40, she might be competing for overseas points. So like if I take that division away from her, I take those points away from her. And so she's no longer competing on an international stage. So just because she might not be competing here, it's like the women's global event, right? The idea of just because you might not be competing against those at the event here, they are competing like overseas when it comes to like their fellow compatriots.
Okay. Right. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced by this, but I'd love to hear some alternative viewpoints, and I'd love for people to say, look, the reason why it was done was because of this. The reason why I chose to play in this division was because of this. And yeah, I mean, some stick to the. We've got some comments coming through. Mike Foley says that minimum 4 to make up a division. Well, yeah, perhaps. Whether you draw the line there or somewhere else, I don't know. Some stick to their divisions as they are intentionally not taking cash for Worlds. Yeah, I think we've spoken before about this. You can play in non-A tiers, and in professional divisions, you can finish in a position which would otherwise give you cash. You can decline the cash and take the equivalent of cash for sponsorship vouchers or whatever, and that won't affect your professional status as far as the PDGA are concerned. And this was a C tier, so it fits within that. I don't know. I just kind of looked at this and went, wow. There's lots of there's four ladies divisions for 5 ladies, which I thought was bizarre. Let us know. What do you think? What do you think at home? Like, am I being silly? Is this something that's not right, or should the and I appreciate that it's it's up to people to, it's the framework that the PDGA have set up, and people are behaving as they wish within a framework. But what are potentially people missing out on if they if they were to play in the same division as someone else? I'm not sure. The PDGA points, yeah, I can kind of see that might have an effect. The difference between FA1 and FPO PDGA points, I'm not sure how much it is, but yeah, I'm not convinced by it, to be honest. But I'd love to hear an alternative argument.
Well, like at the same time, like honestly, I'm in the same boat as you. Like when I hosted nationals last year, I knew that, actually I didn't know at the time, that like an FPO player would have received an invitation to the Champions Cup. And so the idea of, I had to dissolve the FPO division because I didn't have enough competitors. And so I bumped players into FA1. And typically I think that currently New Zealand, for like the next year or so, it's a little bit of cart before the horse. And so the idea of, you have a handful of players who, yes, are concerned about overseas and points and money and cash and like that kind of stuff. And, North Island, the North Island Championships are a great example of the growth of your like MA2, MA3, that like novice and recreational divisions. But at the same time, the idea of having like 4 mixed open divisions, it's like, why not just have MPO, MA1, and MA3? The idea of like masters divisions as well, and MA40 and MA50 and MA60. Why have so many masters divisions? And so like it's an interesting.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the on the numbers here, right? Because I think any.
Why?
Well, because there's a difference, right, between being in a division on your own and then being in a division where there's 8 people. I think 8. If you had, for example, two cards of, if you had, right, how shall I word this? Right, imagine you've got 16 players.
Yep, 4 cards. 8
have registered for MA40 and 8 have registered for MA50. Are you going to combine?
I'm personally not going to offer MA50 in the first place, so there's not going to be 8 in that division.
No. Okay, all right. Sorry. So you have to assume that that's a division that people have initially.
Okay, so I as a TD have offered 2 divisions, and I've had enough people in both of those divisions to make more than 1 card.
So you say that last bit again.
Okay, so I'm the tournament director. Yes.
Yeah.
I have offered these divisions. So I've offered an MA40 and an MA50. Yes.
Yeah.
During the registration process, 8 people register for each of those divisions. Would I combine those divisions?
Yeah.
No.
And there we go. Right. If
I'm saying I'm not going to offer both divisions in the first
No,
place.
okay, but that's not the question here. The question is, at what point do you decide that it's a division's going to be excluded? Because you don't know at the time, right? Because when Jay put this tournament out,
Yeah.
and offered quite rightly FPO and FA1 and FA40, they're three divisions which have seen some high take up, right?
Yeah.
So he probably didn't know when he put the event live that there was going to be one person register in each of those divisions, probably. Right, he perhaps would have hoped for more, and the goldfish comment about how to get more female players involved is correct, and I think I'd almost like to say it goes without saying. Of course, we'd like to have more ladies in, but we're making a comment based on the number of ladies who did play this tournament, and at some point, the number of players in each of those divisions would have been realised, and there could have been a discussion that could have been had a few days before the tournament, a week before the tournament, whenever it looked like the possibility of this could happen, that could have happened between the players involved and the tournament director to say, hey, look, this is the situation, what we'd like to do and what we propose is this. And what I would propose in this situation is to bring everybody together into one, probably FA1 division. Now, Matt Broughton's point about the value of playing on a card with better players and better to play up a division than down, learning to compete on a card. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's opportunities lost to play and compete against, and I think that's different, right? Because there's a difference between trying to compete against someone and playing in the same on the same card as them. Missing out on that experience, I think, is a bit of a shame. Yeah, all right. Not everybody goes to tournaments to compete, so don't compete. I'm not saying don't enter. I'm saying don't compete. Right. So that's kind of the thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit off. If you think I'm being a bit off, please tell me. I'd love to hear how I can change my viewpoint on this if it looks like I've got something that isn't quite right, and I'd love to hear alternative viewpoints to iterate my own belief. If anybody's got any other views on it.
Well, and I would say this, because I don't want to naysay Jay. So congratulations, Jay, on completing a successful event.
Yeah, absolutely.
The course is fantastic.
On a great course. I mean, I
can't wait for footage.
The footage is going to be great. Yeah. No, absolutely. Tip of the cap. And as a first tournament, as a tournament director, it sounded like it went very well.
Yep. And so, the idea of if all these divisions wasn't too much of a headache for him, and it got all of these women out playing, congratulations. The idea that there used to not be 4 women attending events, let alone in 4 divisions. So, congratulations. You held the tournament on a course that you built, and you had, women attend that event. I think that's a win, and a win.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Let's move on to something else. Right, where we're going to go now? We're going to go to from one heated debate to another. Our sweet chain discourse is this is what this segment of the show is called, and what it is an opportunity to go over a talking point about disc golf. It could be an opinion or what if or something else, and Brady and I each take a side. Now, we don't necessarily agree with the side that we're taking, but we've promised each other and you that we are going to back that side to the hilt and argue it until we're blue in the face. So yeah, Brady, take us through the subject of today's discussion and maybe make an opening statement.
Okay, so the topic that I want to bring up tonight is par 5s. Do they belong in disc golf or not?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think they belong in disc golf, please comment down below. If you think par 5s are a great thing, leave a comment saying you love them. If you don't like par 5s, if you think they're too hard, too rough, too easy, leave that in the comments below as well. So to kind of background on this topic. So Steve Dodge, Simon Lizotte, Matt and Nick are all discussing par fives. And so Steve Dodge is completely against that. Maple Hill has 0 par five. And is according to Steve, as long as he is alive, Maple Hill, and unless rules change, will never have a par five. It will only have par fours. So he's of the opinion that if you can, with 3 shots, if you can get within like 200 feet of the basket, it should be a par 4. And so the idea of, and there was discussion around how disc golf is following golf, and this idea of, you know, the differences in the sport is in golf with a golf ball teed up, you can hit it farther off the tee than you can from the fairway.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so they also kind of brought up that in the middle of the fairway, you know, like when the golf ball is on the deck, it's harder to hit. Or if it's in the rough or it's in a sand bunker, it's harder to hit. As compared to disc golf, doesn't have that. You know, like with always being able to have run-ups, with always being able to follow through and like release and follow your discs after you release, you can throw 500 feet off the tee and from the middle of the fairway. Mm-hmm. So like a 1,200 foot hole, or, you know, like a 300 meter hole, you know, you can throw 150 meters and get an eagle. And so I would have to agree. I don't think par fives belong on the Pro Tour. So like I'll put that little caveat on it, that I don't believe that they believe it. You know, like the idea that par fives are too easy. You know, the idea of, and all of this artificial out of bounds to try to stop it. You know, the great thing about golf is that, right, like you have that like shot separation and the different skills required to hit it off the tee, to hit it from the fairway, to hit it from the rough. In disc golf, you don't necessarily have that. And so unless there's a significant change in either the rules or course design, I would argue that everything should be a par 4. And it just means that there will be certain holes on tour that you won't ever be able to birdie at this stage in the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so you mentioned there that it was on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So localize this for us. Do you think we should have par fives in New Zealand? In New Zealand tour tournaments?
No.
Okay. For the same reasons.
Yeah, like they're too easy. So like the great example I would give is like hole 10 at the Garden City Open. Should have been a par 4. You know, like whether the whole design would have changed to better accommodate that so that you can score. I, in general, agree with Steve Dodge that disc golf holes in general are too easy.
Okay. All right. And that's okay. Excellent. Right. Counterpoint. To quote ACDG in the chat, I love a good par 5. Yeah. Look. Okay. So the difference with, for me anyway, right? I'm not a big thrower, as you well know, and as many of our viewers will can attest to. One of the advantages that a par 4 and a par 5 have over a par 3 is that, generally speaking, you don't necessarily need 120 meters of distance in order to be able to grab a birdie. Right? Generally speaking. Right? Now, there are a few holes where that's not the case. Right? Hole 1 at Invercargill, you probably need to be throwing 300 meter, 110 meter shots in order to give yourself a look, probably. It's 300 meter hole, right?
Hole 1.
Yeah, hole 1. It's 300 meter hole.
I birdied it 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah, but you've got 110 to 120 meter distance. That's what I'm saying, right? Is that if you want to birdie that hole, then you need to hit 110, 120 meter. Yeah,
but that's a par 4.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that generally speaking, you don't need to. So, as a lower throwing player, right, a lower distance player, I look at a course and go, oh, actually, par 4s and 5s are some of the holes where I feel like I can attack a little bit more. and there's a chance there for me to grab some shots. I like them. I think they're a very good thing to have on the course. And I think it really is, if there are holes that should be par fours and that you think should be par fours but aren't par fives, then maybe that's a case of hole design rather than what number the par is. Talking of numbers, if you want score separation, then having a higher par gives you the opportunity to have a higher score separation, right? So because you've got more possible scores that can come into it, right? You're more likely to have greater score separation on par fives than you are on others, and the reason being is that people approach things differently to a par four to a par five. You change the par of a hole, and people change the way in which they approach that hole.
Okay.
Do you agree or not? Right? If you took some holes which are par fours, long par fours, and made them par fives, does it change how most people would approach those holes? I think so. I think people would play more conservatively, honestly, in those instances.
So, well, I want to leave par fours out of this because I know you've brought them up a little bit, but I'm talking very specifically about par fives. Mm-hmm. So like a true 3-shot to get to the green par five.
Yep.
And so the idea that the argument that Steve Dodge made was that you shouldn't be able to reach the green in 3, which for disc golf is the 10-meter circle.
Why?
I would say that it comes down to like poor hole design. So the idea that like if you in 2 shots can reach the green, it's a par 4.
So I heard someone say once that the way that a par is decided is you take the number of shots, the minimum number of shots you can throw it in, right? And we're talking about throwing it in from like 100 meters, right? What's the minimum number of shots that it takes to get it in? Add 2, and that's your par. Right?
So the idea of like if you can reach the pin in 1, like from the tee, that makes it a par 3.
Yeah.
So then how do you explain certain par 2 courses?
Par 2 courses?
Yep. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah. Yeah, but there's no par 2 courses on tour. There's no par 2 courses that play a big role or would host a major or would have any I might be doing a disservice here, tournament of significance either in the Pro Tour or in the New Zealand Tour. Now, I'm not denying that there's tournaments that have happened on them before. Sure, there have been, but generally speaking, they don't. It's not a feature of a par 2 hole, let alone a course, is not a feature of a tournament or in New Zealand or in the Pro Tour.
Yep. Well, let's go with let's stay New Zealand, shall we? Okay. So the idea of you played and let's focus on the majors, right? Like the premier New Zealand tournaments. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There are 2 good examples of par 5s that didn't need to exist on both of those courses, both at Garden City Open and in Taupo.
Yep.
So the great example would be hole 4 at the golf club. No, because you didn't play Taupo, so we have to go Invercargill. So hole 17, Invercargill.
Hole 17, yep, okay.
Par 4.
You saying
should be par 4.
You're saying that should be a par 4?
Yep.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a par 4. Yeah.
And the same thing.
Because you can reasonably throw it in from... No, sorry. Reasonable's not the right word. It's possible for someone to throw it in, right, from the landing zone of your initial drive on that hole, right? And we saw it, right? It was eagled.
Reach the green in 2.
Yep.
So the green being established as the 10-meter circle around the basket.
Yep.
in being able to reach that in 2 shots from the tee.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So the idea of, and then the same thing, hole 10, Garden City Open, par 4.
He's going back in time, and I'm an old man, so just
So that's the
remind me
late
of
double Mando.
the late.
So you have like OB straight down. You have the kind of like offset double Mando on your left, and then the basket itself is down by the path in the back.
Oh yeah. I know the one. Yeah, I know the one. It's long downhill, Mando both sides. So 1, 2. See, now I think that's more approaching a par 5, honestly.
Okay, so sell that to me. So if you can agree that hole 17 should be a par 4, sell me hole 10 as a par 5. Why does that need to be a par 5 and not a par 4?
Did anybody eagle that hole? I don't think they did. I'm going to look it up. One moment.
Okay.
If you know the answer to this, then please tell us. Please let us know in the comments. But I don't think anybody eagled that hole 10 at Garden City Open. I'm just going to quickly check the tournament results here. I won't be 5 seconds whilst I do this. View hole scores. Stats. Hole 10. Nobody eagled it on the first day. On the final day, sorry. Nobody eagled it on the first day. This is MPO. I'm going to assume that. And then, okay, well, MA1. Let's assume that MA1 can make an impact as well. I'm not going to check the other divisions because there was certainly no one in my division that eagled it. So no, there was nobody who eagled that par 5. However, you go to Invercargill, and I believe that
I was going to say Max did it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he eagled hole 17 in the final round. He may have been the only person to have done it.
Oh, I don't know if did he eagle in the final round or did he eagle in the semifinal on Saturday?
So Jasper eagled it in the final round. Maxime eagled it in the first round, in the second round, and Ben Wheellake eagled it in the first round. So what you've got there is an eagle in each round, right?
Yep.
And I would argue that yes, that should have been a par 4. Yeah.
Okay. So sell me on the par 5 because I say it shouldn't exist. I say that hole 10 at Garden City should be a par 4.
Well, I think it was the difference. The difference really was because there was 2 changes of direction, on your flight path, if you like, on hole 10 at Christchurch, whereas there was only really one at Invercargill. The distances. How did the distances compare? 275 at Invercargill compared to 271, so very similar distances. For me, it's the way in which the hole is designed. There was a change in direction, 2 changes of direction. It went through to the left hand side. You went through to the left to get through the 2 Mandos, and then you had to hook back right as you went and approached the basket. Right. So your first shot takes you straight down the fairway. Most people were just shooting it straight, right? And there was very few people who were getting to the corner. In fact, very few people who were getting to the corner. Even the biggest throws weren't getting there. And then the next throw gets you round the corner. And I don't know if you... Right, so put in the comments, did you see... Nobody eagled it, but did anyone even have a look? Did anyone have a look at an eagle on that hole? Did anyone even get it within circle 2? Because I don't know. I'm not sure, and that would be an example of how a hole is designed with the correct par in mind. At Invercargill, what they could have done to make that hole 17 harder was to put an additional dog leg in it, right? So move the tee round into to the left, so you had to come round in a big shape, or the other way, so you had another change in direction. And or they could have moved it further back. I think you couldn't move it further back because of the geography of the golf course. But like, I think it wouldn't have. I think that's a bit of a blunt instrument way of doing it as well. I think it's just move it, make more distance is a little bit lazy.
Well, theoretically, you could easily do that in Invercargill. So the tee pad itself could probably go another 40 meters back to the very corner of the park behind the golf tee pad. And the basket itself could be pushed down the very end of the tree line. So if you're trying to add distance, that could be done. I'm still saying it'd be a par 4.
Okay.
So like the idea of that, because basically like the crux, so like we seem to agree on the course design bit of it.
Yeah.
And so like from what I'm getting from you, you are saying that in order for it to be a par 5, the hole needs to be designed with both distance and a change of direction.
Yes, or obstacles which in lieu of a change of direction but have the same effect, right? Which essentially put an extra stroke into the play, because I don't know, there's a big wall in the way of trees or whatever. There's an obstacle which otherwise doesn't allow you to shoot a straight shot, which is what happened at Invercargill. You shoot it straight down the middle with a little fade, which is what Maxime did, and then hang it out over the OB and have it fade back. And that's probably how I didn't see how Ben got his eagle. I suspect he got it in a very similar way.
Well, and like arguably the first par 5 at Invercargill for Nationals was eagled every round by Maxime. For the idea,
so this is hole 1 at Invercargill. Sorry,
hole 4.
Hole 4.
Late Mando hedge line.
Oh yeah. That's a par 4. Par 4.
Cool.
Yeah, par 4.
So the idea of let's go to the hardest.
But look,
par 5 on tour, right?
The hardest par 5 on tour. Go on.
Yep. Let's go Disc Golf Pro Tour. Hardest par 5 in the world.
Northwood
arguably Black. By some par 6.
Is it Northwood Black hole 11? Is that the one that was
hole
mentioned?
12?
Hole 12. Okay.
Would I get to play at AM Worlds? I am so excited.
Yeah.
Par 4.
Yeah. No, par 5. No one's eagled it. And again, this is something which came up on the Nick and Matt show, because they've got Stat Mando on there, right? So they can just pull any numbers they like. And what they were saying was that that par 5s almost fit into 2 categories. They fit into ones which are never eagled or seldom eagled, like once every year, or ones that are eagled by most of the field every time, right? And so I think that is an example of where course design comes into it, where you've got to kind of be like, right, okay, well, you got to change that, and it's a bit obvious which ones shouldn't be par 4s. But the question, right? Remember, the question isn't should particular holes be a par 4 or par 5. The question is, do par 5s have a place in New Zealand disc golf or in disc golf, right? Yep. We're just going to go and have a look at some of the comments.
Let's go elite disc golf. I said elite disc golf, and so I will put the New Zealand Tour on that list and the Disc Golf Pro Tour on that list.
Okay, but before we go any further, let's just have a look at some of the comments which have come through. Hole 7 at Berhampore, one of the best holes. There we are. What about the so-called par 6 on the Pro Tour? That was the one that Brady just mentioned. No one reached circle 1 and 2 shots yet, so yeah, I think that's fair. Par's just a number. We're all just playing the course for a total score. You're not going to play a hole any differently just because it has an arbitrary par 4 or 5 allocated to it. I disagree with that, Brett Carlisle, and we should have more conversations about this, because there's examples at Berhampore where if holes were a par 4 or a par 5, they'd be played differently, and there's other examples as well, which we can talk about. We're all overly obsessed with our score to par versus our overall score. Yeah, okay, that's perhaps fair. Berhampore has a soft par 5, 224 meters. What's the elevation? About 224 meters, something like that. Henley Lake has a 200 meter par 4. Yeah, okay, but not quite the same. Henley Lake's a little flatter than Berhampore is, so that might have something to do with it. can we just talk about the elephant in the room? Berrenpour hole 7, elephants. Yeah. Brady, I think people are calling you out that you designed a course with a par 5 in it. Let's just remember that this doesn't necessarily represent our own views. We have agreed to. He did, Tom. We have agreed to argue the case as best we can, irrespective of our individual belief or our individual history of course design. So remember, the question is: do par 5s have a place in elite disc golf? Right now, and my argument is that they do. Is that they add something more than par 3s and par 4s do. Right? Par 3s, I think, are those super short, attackable holes which, for the most part, at the elite level, people are looking to get inside the circle, at least inside circle 2, in regulation, right? In off the tee, in one shot. I think par 5s offer the opportunity to require 2, maybe even 3 very good drives in order to get you to where you want to be, right? Which par 3s don't, right? You have this kind of break, if you like. So you do a good drive, and then you stop and you putt, presumably. Par 5s isn't like that. You've got to drive, and then you've got to drive again, and people's differing positions for wherever they landed on the fairway then will influence the following shots. And I think because of that, they're a good thing. It adds an extra dimension. It adds an extra thing that you've got to test that isn't drive, approach, or drive, putt. And I think that the elite tour, wherever it's played, would be missing out if par 5s were precluded from being involved.
Well, and like arguably for me, so the idea of like not believing in par 5s for the sake of this argument, and the idea of like maybe with the one exception being hole 12, for the idea of that it is a good like course design, hole design when it comes to being a par 5, in that you are not able to like fully drive off the tee and then fully drive in the fairway. You know, like it's almost placement, and then if you do happen to want the birdie, it's typically your third shot when you're going across the valley over the bridge up the hill that you need your full drive. So the idea of how the rules currently stand and like how disc golf currently works, that might be the only par 5 that I think can get the nod. Everything else for me should be a par 4 and just shouldn't be burdened.
But then shouldn't the have we fallen into a trap here? And I think it was brought up on the Nick and Matt show as well. Have we fallen into a trap here of trying to copy golf a little bit too much? And the reason I say that is because you mentioned that a lot of the you mentioned earlier that you can drive with a golf club far greater off the tee than you can down the fairway, which is, I think everybody would agree, because it's on a nice little tee thing and it's easier to hit than when it's just on the ground. And so as a result, what's perhaps subconsciously happened is hole design has gone along the roads of going, right, well, we're going to have a big drive and then maybe another big drive, and then the third shot will be a shorter approach shot because they're playing from the fairway. And when really what's happening is that third shot is often a full send and could be 100, 120 meters, as we see in some of the longer holes on tour. Certainly somewhere like somewhere like Berrenpour, right? Your final shot most of the elite players are getting to from anywhere from the bottom of the hill to probably the edge of circle 2 or circle 3 on their third shot, right? Sorry, on their second shot, right?
Yeah.
So there's not many people who have the distance to be and demonstrably have the distance. So what I mean by that is they've done it. They've shown us that they can do it. Andy Davey reminds me because he did 2 air shots that went pin high. Right, that's fair enough. Right, but there's otherwise very few players who have who demonstrably have the ability to get to the circle in 2 on that hole. So I think it deserves to be a par 5 because of that.
Well, here's a good question. We brought up distance before and the idea of, Barrenpore's 235 par 5 and the 200-meter par 4 at Henley Lake. Leave it in the comments down below. Let's see if we can get a viewer consensus for how long a par 5 should be. So we'll just let that run. So if we can get a consensus, leave a message, a comment down below saying how long a par 5 should be.
And this is a serious question. We're not being facetious like we do with our South Island par 4s. That's not the goal here. I know we take the piss out of that 90 meter par 4, but that's not the point. We genuinely want to know what do you think is the kind of minimum distance that a par 5 should be?
Yep.
For me, if there's not elevation change, and you have to take into account elevation change, right? So if that 235 meter Berrenpore hole was played the other way, right, and was played down the hill rather than up the hill, it plays a lot shorter and is a lot easier to get the distance. I don't know if you've played the reverse of Berrenpore, you have, but and it probably plays a hell of a lot easier than it does the other way, right? So elevation change has to be taken into account. And do you know how? I haven't done the maths, but I probably do. You know the elevation do you know the elevation change at Berrenpore?
I think it's 25 meters.
25 meters
up.
25 meters up, and it's 235. So I mean, if you that obviously plays a lot longer. I'd have to do some geometry to work out exactly how far that plays. But
I have a different question for you. So they can deal with the distance in the comments. My question for you, Matt, is say I get the opportunity to run nationals, or say I get a North Island Champs at Berrenport.
Yeah.
For that event,
yeah,
I change the par to a par 4.
Yeah.
How does that hole change?
Doesn't.
Or does it?
No, that hole doesn't change. Because
it doesn't change. I'm just changing the number.
Yeah.
So for the event, for regular punters, it's a par 5.
Yeah.
For nationals 2,
yeah,
it's a par 4.
Right. Well, there's no problem.
Okay.
There's no problem. Okay. Because we've said before, par is just a number. I think my point is that I like to see holes that are par 5s because it makes it something different for the course. Not every hole plays differently depending on what the par is, but a lot of them do. Berrenpore hole 7 isn't one of those holes because it doesn't. There's a way that you play it. There's a route to take. And whether you go at the left hand side of the fairway or the right hand side, broadly the same way. You're not talking about are you going to take a spike hyzer or are you going to go through the gap, right? That's not what we're talking about here. It's broadly you play in the same direction and there's a landing zone that you want to be on, and then you've got a second shot where you want to be on top of that little ridge, and then if you can get over the last little bit and slide up, then great, and you've got yourself that's how you get a birdie. And that's broadly how everybody's doing it. Very few people are doing it any differently unless you lay a roller down, and fair play if you get a birdie from laying a roller down, you probably deserve it. So look, I say that they're a good thing for elite disc golf because they provide an extra dimension that that tests a range of skills which you don't get if you restrict yourself to par 3 and par 4s, because people play holes differently.
And I would say you could still test all of those skills and just keep them par 4s.
Okay, excellent. Look, What do you think? We'd be really keen to know. Do par fives have a place in New Zealand disc golf? Do you want to see more or fewer of them? We saw, what was it, 5 in Invercargill, and there was a few in Topor as well, I believe, wasn't there? How many was in Topor? Can you remember?
I think only 2.
Only 2. I mean, 1 or 2 is kind of what we're used to. So when Invercargill pulled 5 out, I think everybody went, "Oh, this is different." I certainly, perked up at that. I thought that it was interesting that that there's so many par 5s, and actually the par 5 snake, that's a par 5, right? Was anybody in the circle for an eagle look? Was anyone even in circle 3 for an eagle? I don't know. Maybe I'm being unfair.
In those conditions, I don't think so.
Well, not in those conditions. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And arguably the next hole. So like that was hole 11, hole 12, that back-to-back par 5. I don't think anyone eagled that, and it wasn't birdied heaps.
No, but the difference between those 2 holes is that the hole is it hole 12? Was that
11 was the snake.
11 was the snake, so 12 was the one after. That one that was a lot more open, right? If you hit the turnover shot correct off the tee, then you were in a pretty good spot for your last 2 drives. Anyway, right, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to see some upcoming events. So we've got these events that are all coming up. Generation Disc Golf Series number 4 at Montana Flat. The registration for this is open, and it's being held on the 16th of April in 10 days' time. So weekend after next, so make sure that you get yourself across to there if you're in the area. Then the Brook Park Brave at Te Kuiti in 2 weeks' time. On the 22nd to the 24th of April, and then that's followed by the Generation Disc Golf Series finale at Jardine Park. Middle-earth Open, Brady, do you have any news for us on where Middle-earth Open is going to be held this year? Dates that it's going to be held, like what will people be doing and playing, and can you give us any more info?
Yep, I can. So I did make a post about it last night up on the event. So please, on Facebook, on the Greater Wellington Facebook page, you can find links to the Middle-earth Open. It will be held at Harcourt Park. And the second location this year is going to be Moonshine Park. Mm-hmm. Another Upper Hutt location, it will be a temporary course. I will be doing hole previews, and I'm hoping to get that key access to that for the Friday before the event.
So it's a Saturday and Sunday event?
Yep, correct. Back to classic, going back to its roots. So the idea of you'll have 2 rounds on Saturday with a lunch provided in the middle. You'll have 1 round on Sunday with lunch and prize giving on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Lunch will be held at Harcourt Park. I will be splitting the divisions. So the idea of half the field will play Harcourt Park in the morning, mm-hmm. and then they'll play Moonshine in the afternoon. Those divisions will also come back to Harcourt Park on Sunday, as compared to the other divisions will play Moonshine first thing Saturday, Harcourt Park in the afternoon, and then Moonshine. Mm-hmm. So there will be a little bit of split there. Moonshine is a little bit more open, but there's some great mature trees there. So there's going to be some shot shaping. There's going to be some tunnel shots. There's one kind of tricky green, which you'll kind of see on hole 1 as video previews come out. But yeah, so that's all happening May 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Excellent. And if you know the Wellington area relatively well, but you just can't picture where Moonshine Park is, head north on State Highway 2, and just before the point where the highway crosses the Hutt River, on the right-hand side, that's Moonshine Park. So just before that bridge, the other side of the river from the highway, that's Moonshine Park. So yeah, next time you're driving up that way, take a look, and you'll see where the course will be laid out. So yeah, looking forward to that. That should be good fun. Registration is going to
it's going to open tomorrow night. If I can sort this PayPal thing and that kind of stuff. So tomorrow night, 8 p.m. There is a discount to Greater Wellington Disc Golf members.
Is there a limit to the number of players?
Yes, it will be capped at 72.
72, right. So you've got to be quick. Fastest finger first tomorrow evening. gets you in to the Middle Earth Open. So be sure to follow the Facebook event and take a look at the discussion page, and presumably the post will come out, and I mean we can share it on Sweet Chain and they'll
share it on Sweet Chain. We'll share it in the event. We'll share it on Greater Wellington Disc Golf. So follow all of those channels to stay in the loop.
Fantastic. Lords and Ladies of Lismore is in Wanaka on the same weekend. Registration for that is now open as well. And there's the Women's Disc Golf Day, which is being held up in Auckland on the 13th of May. I heard that there might be a, dare I say, sister event being held on the same day in Auckland, which was advertised 5 days ago. I'll let you go back and have a look at some of those details. And then the Waitawa Coastal Cup was on the 3rd to the 4th of June, and that's up in Auckland as well. Registration details for that coming soon. Now, there have been some changes to the power rankings as a result of the Bottle Lake Open. As we can see, Echo Lee moved up one spot up into the top 10. Thanks to her victory. We must remember that the power rankings are agnostic of division, so they do not care what division you played. They simply compare against the players that you played who played on the same course. And over in the MPO division, Jay Watkinson moves up 2 spots to be the number 1 player currently in New Zealand, overtaking Levi Stout and Jackson Sullivan thanks to his win at the weekend. Sebastian Faulkner's 2nd place was enough to move him 6 places up to 10th. And Ashton Clark moves 3 places up to 17th. The highest mover of this week was Sam Lycan, who moved 30 places up to 100th in the country. So congratulations to him. Maxime Tange, as you can see, is a new entry in coming in at 5th. However, he's now left the country, so
he'll fall away before too long.
He will fall away. We may have to artificially take him out because that perhaps won't reflect it quite right. But there we go. Tomorrow I'll update on the sweetchainmusic.co.nz website all of the rankings, and you can see where you place in the New Zealand rankings, and you'll be able to check out where you compare to all of your mates and see how you might have moved as a result of your Bottle Lake Open performance. Maxime was in Masterton today. A lesser spotted Tange was seen in Masterton today. Matt is telling us so. He hasn't quite left the country yet. Still time, Maxime, if you want to extend your visa and your stay. Anyway, that's it from us this week. So wherever you're playing disc golf, take it easy, play well, get some birdies, and we'll see you